Hey, welcome back to Mike's Diabetes Roll. There, just modified a bit. Shall we start? Current blood sugar is 8.1. Fully calibrated, I have 1.575 units of insulin. Being within range all day, I'm a little higher than I would normally like to be, but well, okay. We've improved a tiny bit. Time in range is 76%. This here yesterday was 24%. I'll come back to that in a moment. 8.7, we're higher. This is higher, so this is going to be higher. I figured that out all on my very own. Okay, so we'll take this number. So 1% is represented as 15 minutes. So we have 24. So if we go to 24 times 15 equals 360 divided by 60 means for 6 hours yesterday, I was out of range. That's not great. So, usually I like to tie anything I brought up on here with our topic, but I couldn't really find a way of tying it in. Today's video is called One Mistake. So we'll get into it right when we get back. Stay tuned. This channel is provided for informational purposes only. Contact your physician for any diagnostic or treatment plan. Okay, what do I mean by one mistake? Was it one mistake that we got diabetes? I don't think so. I know one mistake probably won't kill you. And my dad was working in another province, Alberta, during the oil boom. And I went to visit him, and going there, no problem. Coming back, my lunch tray, this was back when for our flight you got a meal, but it had lima beans on it. And I got back, and my sister said, well, did you eat on the plane? And I said, yes. I told her what I had, and she said, lima beans? You're not supposed to have lima beans. Oh my God, I gotta call the doctor right away. That kind of mistake isn't going to cost you, excuse me, let me just take care of this, isn't going to be the end of all world. If you take a whole bottle of insulin, that's a mistake that could have serious consequences. When I was first diagnosed, everything was hammered in that you had to do everything correctly. If you didn't, you could die. You could lose an eye. You could lose a foot. If you have one high blood sugar, you don't want to have a high blood sugar. It was almost like if we have a high blood sugar, you have to go to emergency. But as you sort of gauge your life as a type 1 diabetic, you will start to know the seriousness of emergencies. There are times where I feel like crap. And as such, I think I'm having an emergency. But I go into emergency and have been told, oh, well, we think you're fine. And then they do a blood sugar, and the blood sugar comes back, and all the bells and whistles go off. So, yes, you can make mistakes, but how you respond to these mistakes and how you learn from these mistakes is more important. My time of having having the lima beans in my story wasn't that big a mistake. Yes, I did. Yes, there might be a bump in my sugar, but back then we didn't have glucometers. We didn't know what our blood sugar ratings were. So you had to deal with what you were dealt with. The only way you could sort of visualize was on how high your blood sugar was by doing a urine test. And it was like having a little chemistry. It was a lot more complicated than doing the blood test. First, you had to do 5 drops of urine to 10 drops of water. Drop a pill into it, it fizzed, and you match the colors up to the chart. But the problem was, my negative might go up to a certain blood sugar where your negative might be just a hair lower, and you could start showing sugar where mine would be negative or 2 worth. It wasn't precise. It was a guide. It was not precise. Blood glucose is easier for us to understand. Taking your insulin without knowing what your blood sugar is, or not knowing how to count your carbs, can turn into a major mistake. So you need to ensure that you take away all the variables that you can. 1, by understanding the situation. 2, by treating as quickly as you find there is a problem. If you start feeling high, like you're thirsty and you're feeling kind of nauseous, but your blood sugar isn't till dinner time, take a blood sugar, and if you're high, correct. With the pump, it's nice and easy. I can see it. I can correct it. And we can move on. If you make a critical error and you've taken too much insulin and you didn't eat for whatever reason, and you end up in an ambulance going to an emergency room, things happen, but learn from that. Don't let yourself get into the same situation. I've told this story many a times. I made a big error when I went to Fiji. And this was back in 1984. No, earlier than that. It was 79. That sounds about right. I went to Fiji, and the insulin I put into the fridge, and it was all labeled. It was great. I thought I did a really good job. Anyway, I had asked a flight attendant about getting my insulin back. Something was in the back of my mind. And she said, "Oh, it'll be fine." I should have requested it back. When it came time for dinner and insulin, I didn't have any insulin on that plane. I had to walk to Fiji. I've told the story before. Next, when I travel, I kept everything with me. I learned. I keep my insulin, I keep my testing supplies, I keep a letter from my doctor, all close in hand. A lot of the excess supplies can go in your luggage, but what you're going to need or a possibility of needing during your flight stays with you. Makes mind-blowing, I know. But that is an example of how I learned from the mistake and took steps to ensure it doesn't happen again. It's human nature to make mistakes. The first time I made a mistake, and you've got to remember the culture back in 77 when I was diagnosed was that you make a mistake, it's the end of the world. And realizing I took my insulin, I ate, but I was hungry, so I ate some more. My blood sugar went high. I started to drink. And I took correcting. I didn't realize it was called a correcting dose back then, but we took it, and things started to get better, and I thought, this is not the end of the world. This is not the end of the world that I was taught. So, sorry, trying to get rid of the light glare out. There we go. But you need to ensure that you rate what severity the mistake would be. We all know that poking ourselves in the eye is going to cause you to go blind. But not treating a high and you keep going higher, that's a mistake you made once. You're going to try not to make it again. We have the tools nowadays. You have your pumps. We have your cell phones, your Apple Watches, where you're able to take a look at your blood sugar all the time. So, it's all good. Now, I don't want to sound nonchalant about making mistakes. I think from a viewpoint of a parent, and I could understand where my sister was coming from at that time, but parents and wives and that, who don't really have to live with the disease themselves will treat highs and lows and mistakes made by the patient differently than the way the patient does. And it can annoy people that you are nonchalant about things. So remember to keep that in mind. But also, don't just push it out of your mind and forget about it. If you do make a mistake, deal with it and ensure it doesn't happen again. Does that mean my life's perfect? I don't make mistakes anymore? No way. I still make mistakes. So, while mistakes where you don't learn and you don't take steps to ensure it doesn't happen again can be problematic. I don't want to be in that predicament again, so I tried to learn, tried to take steps. If I don't do a finger poke and I take insulin and I have a bad low, you know what reasons why. 90% of the time, you know the true reasons. So learn and move on. Your diabetes will come easier to control. Because once you learn and you've made a mistake, move on. But learn and remember to learn. And with that, have a super day and we'll talk again later. Bye now. My email is mikesdiabetesworld@gmail.com. mikesdiabetesworld@gmail.com.